I found this one, and it's a really silly story. It's called The Frog and the Lion Fairy.
Okay.
This was attracted to me because I was like, what's a lion fairy? I need to read this story. So, once upon a time, there was a king who was always at war with his neighbors, like you do. And the storyteller was quick to point out that the king's a good guy. He doesn't want other people's land, but he apparently tried too much to please other people and now is just going to have to like fall back within his own walls and prepare for a long siege. And his biggest concern is protecting his wife, the queen. So he wants to send her away to a safe place. I'm telling this story completely through bullet points because it was a long one, and I'm cutting it down to the parts that are fully essential. Aw, Dan's got his Godzilla plushie. He's like ready for this, ready for storytelling. So the queen is sent with guards to a fortified castle in a great forest 200 miles away. She cries a lot. The story goes into great detail about it. They had been married a few months, and she misses him terribly. And she misses freedom because they never leave her alone, and she's stuck in the castle most of the time. All these people that were sent with her. So the guards and the queen, they stop hearing from the king. We find out our queen is 16 years old and is afraid that he's sick or dead. She makes plans to run away from the safe place she's been put in to go check on him because she's totally going to be able to do something. Her devious plan that she comes up with is she tells everyone she's going hunting, and the whole group sets off with her in one direction, and when no one's looking, she's going to gallop the other way. Nothing can go wrong with this plan. It's obviously foolproof. Sadly, the other direction that she chose did not go toward the king's castle. In fact, this goes spectacularly wrong because her horses run into a tree and the queen gets knocked out. I forgot about your soundboard. Okay. She wakes up to find a huge woman, almost a giantess, who is naked, except for this lion skin that is thrown over her shoulder. And oh yeah, she's also got a dried snake skin braided in her hair because accessories. Just checking on you for that one. She has a club and a quiver of arrows. She introduces herself as the Lion Fairy and tells the queen, "You will spend all of your days with me in my palace." The queen suggests asking the king for a ransom for her. Like, hey, ransom me off, please. I'm sure he'll pay for me. It would be great. Do you like money? Most people like money. And the Lion Fairy is not interested. She's loaded and bored and thinks that the queen might amuse her a little, maybe. The Lion Fairy changes into a lion because that's something she can do and throws the queen on her back, and they go down 10,000 steps to the Lion Fairy's palace. It's basically an underworld of sorts. There's a house all lit up, a lake of quicksilver with lots and lots of monsters. In the distance, you can see a mountain with water running down the sides. These are said to be the tears of unhappy lovers. And there's plenty of brambles. This place has so much atmosphere. The queen is so freaked out, she doesn't move or speak for days. The Lion Fairy tells the queen, hey, if you like, you can build yourself a cabin so you can have a place to live now that you live here. The queen does what she always does and cries a lot. The queen begs the Lion Fairy, please kill me instead of condemning me to this life. The Lion Fairy laughs at her and advises her to lighten up or it'll get worse. The queen doesn't stop whining, so it gets worse. It gets so much worse. The lion fairy tells the queen, make her is it a pasty or a pasty? I always get this wrong. I should know as someone from Michigan.
In the UP, it's a pasty.
In the UP, it's a pasty? That's what you're saying? Okay. So let's say it's a pasty. She wants a pasty out of the stings of bees.
You have to do the minute, the X.
I'm trying. Pasty?
Do full sentence.
Full sentences, pasty? Can you please make me a pasty out of the stings of bees, don't you know?
There you go.
Better?
Yes.
The queen has not seen any bees at all, does not know how this is going to be possible. Her tormentor replies, oh, there aren't any, but you have to find them anyway. The queen cries so much. Sometime later, a crow comes by with a fat frog in its claws for supper, hence the other character in the title of the story. The queen decides to smack the bird to free the frog, and the frog thanks the queen and asks, hey, how'd you end up here? Because you seem pretty nice, and nobody here is nice. Turns out the frog is half fairy, and the reason that the crow was getting the best of her was because her power lies in a little cap she wears made of rose leaves that happen to not be on her head at that moment. She offers to help the queen, and the queen tells her about the problem. There's no bees, there's no flowers. How am I gonna make that pasty? So Frog Fairy is super helpful. Frog Fairy strikes the ground 3 times with her foot, and 6,000 frogs show up. Because this story is nothing if not good at overkill. She commands... Yes, it was epic. She commands them, hey frogs, cover yourselves in honey and go to the Lion Fairy's secret storage area where she keeps bees that she uses to punish her victims. The frogs come back with bees stuck all over them, and the queen laughs and easily completes the task. The giantess complains about the taste of the pasty, but commends the queen's intelligence compared to her past kidnapping victims. Now go build yourself a house. So, queen builds a house with the help of those 6,000 frogs with a soft fern bed. The queen was just about to fall asleep in this wonderful new home, except a small dragon crept in and terrified her, so she ran away and hid under a rock the rest of the night. Not a first good night at her new home. This story is just so epic and lengthy, but we're going to keep going. The frog comes by and says, hey, I know we just built that other house, and it was a lot of work, and 6,000 frogs made it. How about, instead of doing anything about that dragon, let's build another house, not so close to them lake monsters, yeah? This time, her bed smells of wild thyme. This is a relevant and important fact that needed to be included in the story. The Lion Fairy hears about it. Oh, what a good smelling house. Oh, gets so mad. Tells the queen, you better find me all the rarest flowers in an hour's time or else. The queen takes this new problem to the frog, who says she made friends with a bat that can wear her cap and go back up to the normal world and collect flowers for them. So the bat comes back with the most beautiful and sweetest flowers that grew on the earth. Lion Fairy is shocked. The flower smells make the queen homesick. She wants to escape. The frog takes off her cap and puts it in a box with some juniper, capers, and 2 peas that she carried under her right leg. The frog whispers to the box, and a voice speaks from the box. Should I do a box voice? Okay, box voice.
Fate forbids your leaving this place till the time comes when certain things are fulfilled. A gift will be given to you that will comfort you in all your troubles.
Like a fortune cookie. So Frog created this magic box to help the queen and make her feel better. We have a fortune. And this is where the story really goes off the rails. A few days later, the frog found the most beautiful baby in the world lying next to the queen. Guess she was preggers the whole time? I don't know. So that was a thing that happened. So their biggest concern is not with the arrival of the baby and where it came from, but with what to name the baby. 1,000 names are considered and rejected. 1,000 names were considered and rejected, and they decided to call her Muffet. That was the best name. When Princess Muffet was 6 months old, because we're still here in the underworld, the frog noticed the queen got sad again. Oh man, it's like being kidnapped bums you out. The queen wished that her husband, the king, could meet their beautiful daughter, Muffet, and that she could tell him all that has happened. She's like, oh, he probably thinks I'm dead, and he's going to take a new and fair wife and forget me. Because that's the biggest concern of any woman in power, is being replaced. The frog thinks on this for a day and offers to go to the king for her to tell him, the queen's story. The way is long, and I travel slowly, but sooner or later I'll get there, says the frog. But I'd hate to leave you here alone without my protection. Are you okay with that? Seeing as how you haven't fended for yourself successfully at all in this entire story. Is it okay if I leave? We good? You good now? The queen does not hesitate and writes a letter in her own blood for the king. It took the frog a year and 4 days just to mount the 10,000 steps to the upper world, because she's still under the spell of a wicked fairy. She was so tired, this frog waited on the bank of the stream to rest for another year. The story is so epic. While the frog rested, she got her entourage ready, because she knew she looked like a nobody at the court unless she had a whole procession. So she talked to her cap a lot for ideas. She got a bodyguard of grasshoppers, followed by maids of honor, which were like those tiny green frogs you see in fields. Each one was mounted on a snail with a velvet saddle. Next came water rats, dressed like pages. And then the frog on a litter made of a tortoise shell, carried by 8 toads. This is obviously epic and classy and commanding of respect. The journey lasted 7 years. I can't help but think that the queen has just died by now. Probably doesn't know how to feed herself. Let's find out. Back in the underworld, Lion Fairy took a fancy to Princess Muffet, and she hung out with the princess and queen, teaching her to hunt, and by the time she turned 7, she was good at archery. That took a turn. We're actually building skills in the underworld. Ladies, you might just make it. When the frog shows up at the kingdom, it is the day of the king's wedding to a new bride. Darn. It was true. It's been a while since I read this story, so I'm actually remembering it as we go. The frog demands, I must see the king, and tells him, it's a good thing I came before you broke your promise to your first wife. Here's a load of guilt for you. The king says, I didn't want to get married, but after 9 years, my subjects are demanding it. So, I picked that fair young maiden over there playing with a ball. I don't know, it keeps her busy. The frog informs him, your queen is alive. Here is a letter written in her blood. Oh, and by the way, you have a 9-year-old daughter who is more beautiful than all the children of the world put together. Because fairy tales. The king looks at it and he is thrilled. He says it matches her handwriting, because he consulted a handwriting expert in his kingdom. And he cancels the wedding. That's nice. I'm glad he still likes his first wife. And the people who set him up with the bride are super ticked off and ask, hey, are you going to insult this princess with the ball and listen to a frog? The frog says, I am not a mere frog. Watch this. Puts on her cap and commands her friend. She transforms her grasshoppers, water rats, and snails into a crowd of beautiful creatures. The frog has the fairies dance a ballet. Everyone is so delighted, they ask for an encore. Then she turns them into dancing flowers, which then melted into fountains, whose waters rush down the sides of the hall, pouring outside to form a river around the castle with the most beautiful little boats upon it. The princess forgets all about her wedding and her ball and says, let's go for a sail. So she's easily distracted. This is fine. The moment the princess and her ambassadors get in the boats, the river and the boats vanish along with the princess and ambassadors. What a good trick. The snails, grasshoppers, and water rats reappear in their natural shapes. So the frog says, well, now you know I'm a fairy, and I tell the truth. Because look at all this I just did. It was awesome. You can't even do it. Go find your wife. Here's a ring that will help you find the queen. Oh yeah, and watch out for the lion fairy. She's the most terrible creature who ever existed. Super bad. The king forgot all about his betrothed and got ready for the journey. He rode a horse to the forest and told the horse to go home. I feel like maybe could have kept it around a little bit longer. You never know when you're going to need a good horse. And then he just wanders around on foot for a long time. A really long time. Until one day a voice spoke to him and asks basically, why are you making this harder than it has to be? You can't do this alone. He realizes, oh, it's the ring talking. I got this ring from the frog fairy. Maybe I should use it at some point. I don't know. That's wild. He calls himself a fool for wasting time and asks the ring, show me my wife and daughter. I'm assuming those are the sound effects. And he sees this huge lioness being followed by a lady and a young maid mounted on fairy horses. And he asks the ring to lead him to them. Lion Fairy knew he was coming and asks for a palace of crystal to be built in the middle of the lake of Quicksilver that could float, and put the queen and Princess Muffet in it, and put them under guard of all the monsters of the lake, who conveniently have all fallen in love with the princess. And they were horribly jealous. So this is where it becomes a video game. And the king's going to have to go past the final boss here of the Lion Fairy. Lion Fairy appears as a lion when the king arrives and pounces on him. He was ready and cut off her paw. He wants his wife and daughter back, and she laughs and tells him, good luck, go get them. Go on. He sees them trapped in a floating palace and vows right then, I will never leave this spot on the lake shore without taking them with me, even if it costs me my life. 3 years pass and he's no closer. He fights monsters all day and makes no progress at all. This is a tale as old as time. I told you it was long. The dragon offers to help the king if he swears to... What? Okay. A dragon appeared. I didn't remember this part. Wow. Epic. The dragon's still going. A dragon offers to help the king if he swears to give the dragon a dinner it will never grow tired of when the dragon chooses to ask for it. So like, at my convenience, you must get me the best carry-out of all time. So they fight. A whole bunch of monsters together. A sound like thunder was heard, and the palace and the monsters vanished. And no one knew how. Certainly not this story. But the king found himself standing with his wife and daughter in his own home. And the dragon disappeared, and no one thought of him. Wow. Muffet grew more beautiful every day till age 14, when all the local royals started sending marriage proposals. She picked a prince. That one. That's fine. And her parents liked him too. The prince went home to his father's court with her portrait, because that's how you do things in the old-timey days. One morning, Muffet was playing her harp when father shows up really upset. Turns out, like, a giant showed up to deliver a message. The dragon heard about the betrothal and decided, you know what? Muffet would be a really delicious dish. That's what I want. Give it to me now. They try to bargain with the giant, who's just a messenger, who offers to marry the princess to his nephew, who is young, handsome, and trained in magic and can protect her from the dragon. The parents are down with this plan. They're like, that sounds good. Just marry this guy instead. Trained in magic. We like people with magic skills. But Muffet says, no, I would rather go to the dragon than break my promise. I'm going to lose Dan. He's not going to make it through this story. So, this is where the frog comes back into the story. Remember the frog fairy? Frog riding a greyhound, because why, finds the lovesick prince staring at the princess's portrait and asks, what are you doing here when your princess is in trouble? Come on, kid, get with the program. In the courtyard, you'll find a green horse with 3 heads and 12 feet, and by its side a sword 18 yards long. Hurry up. Practical. Sounds like it can't go wrong. The story gets real short here all of a sudden without any details. The fight lasted all day and the prince won. They got married the next day and lived happily ever after. And that is the story of the frog and the lion fairy. And that story is long enough that we're only doing one story this week because there's just so much to digest. Dan, do you have any thoughts about the frog and the lion fairy? You were pretty quiet, absorbing the story.
What? Can you repeat all of it?
No, I cannot repeat pretty much all of it.
No, I don't really have anything. This one.
I had to share this story because on Tale Wagging, I share the really weird stories that I can't believe ever got written down. This qualifies. It's got everything. It's got so much. There are so many levels to this story. So much why. So much epilogue. And then another epilogue. And can we please story end now? Why? How many years does the story take place over? I mean, Muffet was 14 at the end of the story. And she was born during the story. And I'm not sure how long we were in the underworld before that happened. Let's assume a year. Let's say that this story took place over the course of 15 years because that just sounds good. That's so much. So much. And we never got to see her use her archery skills. I mean, okay, wouldn't it have been better if the princess defeated the dragon with her wicked archery skills?
It's all in the uncut.
It's in the uncut version?
Yeah. 9 hours of.
All right, in the 9-hour version of the story, the princess displays archery, and it's epic and awesome and amazing. That's going to do it for us. We are going to end the stream. This has been a fun episode of Tale Wagging. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week with another story that hopefully won't be 15 years long. Take care. Oh, bye-bye.
Bye.